Today we're going to talk about the skill number 6, which is the skill about how to manage risk, which is very important to improve your value of attention in our care leadership program. Let's review it together. Now, whether your team is remote, partially remote, or you have a team that is all face to face, you always have to manage the risk because it's very important as you are gonna try to give them more power to decide. You have to understand how you can contain the risk. If you know the risk associated to your decisions, you are less afraid of making those decisions, or you would take it more seriously. So let's see how you can analyze those risks. The first thing that you need to do is analyze those risks with your team. Risk analyzing has to do with getting information from as many sources as possible. Again, you cannot spend a long time trying to make decisions because things change so fast that whenever you decide on something, then the context has already changed. So you need to decide fast, but you also need to analyze the risk to see how fast you can decide or how much information you need to get. So as a team trying to find a way to share this information, you can use Mural, you can use any tool that you want, as long as this tool enables your team to provide their input. Maybe it could be something that you don't need to say who they are. Maybe it can be a tool that enables them to give their opinion in an invisible way, that is without saying who is that, or you can just ask them to provide their opinion up front, but you need their opinion because they are the ones that are closer to the customer and they can see the context in a different way, as we saw before. So try to find out some questions such as, why are we doing this? What go wrong? Is it safe? Is the customer happy? Could the product get damaged, especially when you have a crisis like the one we have been dealing with during COVID-19? There are so many risks that are unexpected, things that we don't even know that can happen. So this is where you have to ask more questions. Remember that on the first skill of the attention, we talk about asking questions. Keep asking, observing. This is very important to analyze potential risks that we never thought about. There are many tools that we can use to improve our decision making when analyzing risk, and FMEA is one of those. This tool it's a way to identify potential problems before they even occur. FMEA stands for Failure Mode and Effect Analysis and is a systemic approach used to identify potential issues, which are called failure modes, and quantify the risk of occurrence. Let's say I miss a meeting. That is the effect that I got. And the failure mode is why I got it, because probably the alarm clock didn't go off. All right. So how can we avoid this to happen in the future? First, define the process. What is it that you need to analyze? Maybe you need to redefine your process to be able to serve your customers online. Maybe you had a coffee place and you were serving your people at the table, and now you have to start providing a different service when they go with the car and do a drive-through, and you didn't have that in the past. So how is that gonna change your process? Try to do an FMEA. So define the process. How is the new process gonna be? Review all the steps and try to identify and describe all the functions in that process. So you wanna serve the coffee, you need to get the payment, you need to deliver the product. How are you gonna make this happen? Then when you have all the functions, identify the failure effects, the modes, and the causes. So what are the things, what the effects that you can get what happened if you get the wrong coffee, why would you would get the wrong coffee. Maybe the failure mode is because the person that was taking the order was not hearing well. Maybe it was the wrong order. Someone, the first person got the order after the other person. So there are many things that can affect how you work. So identify what could go wrong and what are the causes of that. Why that could go wrong, and then define ways to prevent it. Uh, Brainstorm with your team to find out what are the things that you can do to make it worse, to make it work. Sorry, and then prioritize. What are the things that really can happen? What are the things that you don't have a lot of probability of happening here? You can measure 3 things that are very important to prioritize. So try these 3 things are: what is the severity of the problem? So how bad is it that you served the wrong order? Then the second one would be the occurrence rating. How often maybe you will get this order wrong? And third, you have to find out what is the way you can detect it. What is the probability that you will detect that? Probably in this case, it will be easy to detect because the customer will get it. So is there any way that you can detect that earlier? Can someone, before the checkout, check it and see, maybe if you write down the name of the product that you're selling, you can find out if it's according to the order. Or maybe you can ask the person before giving it to them. That's another way to detect or prevent the errors. So once you do all these analysis, you can build a table or just build it the best way you can so that it's very easy for everyone to understand, and document the lessons learned. This is a table that you can use where you can describe all the items like main pump, the valve, and then the different functions. Well, the main pump provides pressure when requested by pilot command, and it can fail in 2 ways. It can fail to operate, or there can be a problem with the hydraulic. So this is a way to analyze all the options, all the things that could go wrong. Of course, try to analyze as many as possible, but you will never get to 100%. So that's when it's really important that you prioritize based on, again, severity, occurrence, and detection, and try to define which are the most important for you to solve first. In some cases, you may launch the product before without getting all these problems solved, and sometimes you do have to check everything before launching the product. So it depends on the type of product that you sell. Then the last part of finalizing the risk is trying to identify and analyzing the problems based on what are the different causes of this problem. So it's very important that you as the leader identify the different causes. There's a lot of variation in all of the processes that you have. When you're doing calls, not all the calls last the same amount of time. There are some that last 10 minutes, that there are some that last 5 minutes. So you cannot be micromanaging for every call to last 10 minutes, for example. It's really difficult, it's crazy, and it puts a lot of pressure on the employees. So you have to define where are the points that you really need to focus on and coach your employees. So not all of the problems or not all the variances in your process will call for your attention. You need to prioritize which are the ones that you need to pay more attention to. For every process you have, you need to define which is your average, which is your upper level and the lower level. So you can get that through statistics methods. Or you can define that verse based on what the customer expects from you. Maybe the customer says, well, this is the uh, top time that I can wait for a call, or this is the top time that I can pay for a customer analyst to take a call. So based on that, define it, and then make sure that whenever you are in the middle, this is called, all these blue points are called common cause, and you don't have to call, or it doesn't have to call your attention to solve them. But yes, you do have to work on the special causes, which are the ones that go on top of the upper level or the lower level. In all the cases, are you able to track in a control chart like this? Well, not every time, but as long as you have goals and you like an OKR, and then you can measure them, then you will be able to transfer that to a control chart. If you don't use a control chart, or you don't have defined the metrics or goals that you need to meet, then you may have two mistakes as a leader. The first mistake is that you're going to treat uh, any outcome as it is a special cause. That means that instead here of working on two specific problems, you will have to work on 20 or 30 problems, which is what I call micromanaging. So you need to define where is that you have to really tackle a problem. An example of this is, let's say, again, let's take the example of the call center. You cannot say your calls need to have just 10 minutes or 5 minutes. You have to provide a context. You can say, well, the good call is between 10 and 2 minutes. So as long as the calls are between 10 and 2 minutes, that's fine. You don't have to find out why the calls are being 10 minutes. Why are they being 9 minutes? That's fine. Now, what happens if you have a call of 11 minutes or a call of 1 minute? Well, those are the ones that you need to really pay attention to. And I don't mean that just punish the person that is doing that, but just ask them what happened and if there's something wrong or there's something that can be fixed. The problem with the first mistake is that if you are micromanaging, you are not allowing the process to flow. The employee starts to feel anxious, starts to feel like they cannot make any decisions, or that whatever decision they make is wrong. So you really have to allow them to make decisions and to see what's right and what's wrong, but you need to give them some parameters. And those are the upper and lower limits and the average, so that they know where around what measurements they need to be in. This is also a very nice example whenever you get a shower. If you are turning the knob to the right and to the left because, oh, it's too hot, and then you just move it right away, and then now it's too cold. You never get to the right temperature because you don't allow the environment to adjust to the temperature that you're adjusting. You're adjusting several times a day. So what you have to do is just do an adjustment and wait and see if it works. So in case you are actually getting a special cost, try to tackle it, try to see how you can solve it together, and then allow the employee to figure out how to solve it, and allow them for some time to solve it. Don't go and check on him every single minute. Especially if you're working remotely, this is almost impossible. So you need to practice how to avoid micromanaging. Then the mistake number two that can happen, especially if you are working remotely or you cannot see your team, is not noticing the special causes and just treat them as a common cause. That means that for you, it is normal to have a call of 15 minutes. Well, if for you it's not normal, you have again to define these parameters and pay attention only to those factors that are out of the normal. But this doesn't have to be a secret for you, or this is you only know where which are these parameters. You need to share this information with your employees so that they already know when which are the things that you will be calling your attention. Now, I know there's some times where you are on a crisis and you really don't have time to do the FMEA, or you don't have time to do a control chart. What do you do? Well, just as doctors employ triage to figure out which patients they address first to maximize the number they can help, you need to do some type of triage on what you'll pay attention to right now. You had to assign degrees of urgency to problems to decide what to work on first. You can use you can just take the three most important, or the three that you think are more important. You again may want to check this with your team, and you have to consider that there is the Pareto principle, which is the 80-20 rule, that it says that for many events, roughly 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes. So in most of the cases, you don't need to analyze 100% of the problems to be able or the causes to solve the whole problem. As long as you focus on the 20% that are most relevant, you may get solved 80% of the problem. So always bear that in mind. Instead of willing to work with all the priorities at the same time, trying to focus on the two or three that are most important, and try to take again the 80-20 rule and feel confident that with those two or three, you will have 80% of your problems solved. Now, to finalize this chapter of the skill number 6, try to describe the functions in your process and determine what could go wrong. Again, do this with your team. First, identify the failure modes, what could go wrong. Then identify the failure effects, what happens if it actually go wrong. That will help you define the severity of the problem, and maybe the occurrence of the problem. And then if it go wrong, how can you solve it? What it could go wrong, what could trigger that, and try to define how you could solve it. This is a great practice for all your processes to try to prevent problems, and this is also a good way to help your team make decisions, because they already know if this is wrong, how they can solve it. When you provide this information beforehand, it makes it much easier for them to feel confident making decisions. So just to summarize about all these chapter of the value of attention, think that you cannot eliminate risk, but you can reduce them. So how you can reduce them? First, pushing decision making to the front line where they get more information from the context and from the customers. Then foster trust through transparency. And third, analyze the risk together to be able to manage them much better. Write down all these notes of the recap and take some time to reflect. Take 5 minutes to think about 3 highlights from this class and write them in your notepad or in your action plan. This is very important so that you remember all the things that we discussed, and replay if you want to have more information about any of the parts of the session. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you had a great class, and please don't hesitate to ask any questions. Contact me on social media or make a comment below to try to define what are the things that you want to learn more about. Go to the weculture.com to find more articles on that, or follow me on social media at Paulise. Thank you very much, and see you in the next session.